In a world filled with conflict, in a universe comprised of differences, there's one thing that absolutely everything shares in common. We all exist. Including two guys named Jack and Michael, who like to chat about that very thing over a good cup of coffee. Let's pay them a visit, shall we?
Existence Brewing.
What is that?
Medication time. Medication time.
Oh. Is this what I think it is?
What the hell?
Medication time. Medication time.
When did Nurse Ratchet start working here as a barista?
I remember this. I saw the flyer for it.
I definitely don't want any saltpeter in my latte.
This is the theme day that they were talking about a few weeks ago.
Theme day?
Yeah. So, you know how the hipster coffee places always like to kind of like take a stand? This one, I don't really know if it's going to really hit home as well, but they were saying that they were going to do a hospital themed day, like a mental hospital themed day.
Now, you started with hospital and then you moved into a completely different wing of the hospital now.
Yeah.
Medication time. Medication time.
So they were saying that like caffeine is kind of like, you know, we all just line up for it and we should just start doing themed days at Existence Brewing. And today was the mental hospital day. So we're all lining up for our hit of caffeine, our medication. So
medication time.
We're taking a hit
medication
of it today.
Yeah.
It should be mentioned that this will coincide with the 3 consecutive weeks of Jack Nicholson movie-themed drinks, one new every day.
Going back to theme restaurants, I have had kind of a nostalgia lately for theme restaurants. Did you ever go to a themed restaurant? Of course,
themed restaurants.
You know, you've got medieval times. There's a jungle rainforest theme that was
Rainforest Cafe. Yeah.
Yes, cafe, and then of course you've got like Hard Rock Cafe. That also could technically be a themed restaurant. Themed restaurants aren't always known for their food. I find that ironic.
Theme restaurants are known for their theming.
Yes.
And you go and the food is a
their
secondary
experience.
Or ancillary part of the experience.
Which I always thought it was kind of odd because, I mean, you're paying for a meal at a restaurant, but yet maybe the service isn't as great as maybe another restaurant. So do you think that the proprietors of that restaurant have that in mind? Like, hey, we're going to suck anyway. So you might as well, like, you know, make it look like a jungle in here and make some sound effects and people will just kind of forget that you've got an overpriced burger.
Yeah, well, my dad, quite literally, he sold insurance and wigs and he was a good salesman back in his time. He was a regular Willie Loman. But he echoed the old sentiment, which could quite literally translate in the instance of your question, sell the sizzle, not the steak. So the steak is a $3 piece of shit that the jockey was hitting at the Santa Anita Fifth.
Yes.
2 weeks ago. And we picked it up for $3 on the cheap and we're charging $89.50 and we'll cook it your way to order. But as long, you know, what you're paying for is the ambiance.
The experience.
I can't profess to have been into a lot of themed restaurants over the years. It's, you know, as you know, with me, hype and all that's not really my thing. I went to the Hard Rock Cafe that used to be in the Toronto Sky Dome, which is now something else. It's the stadium in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where the Blue Jays play. And I did see a Blue Jays game there, but before taking in the game, we took in a beverage, an adult beverage, and a meal. That was back when I would actually drink alcohol to, certain moderations. And they made me, I'll never forget, there's a picture of me holding it because the bartender knew how to make a Zambuca milkshake. And there's a picture of me and my brother there enjoying our time at the Sky Dome in Toronto. So at the Hard Rock Cafe. So. And I have the T-shirt. The obligatory T-shirt was purchased.
Of course.
And it's a rare collector's item now because it says Sky Dome, and that one's no longer there. But I dug the shirt out years ago, and I don't know what the hell happened to it. I didn't think I wore it that often, but it is moth-eaten and ragged. It looks like it's been through the feudal wars in Japan. Like samurai. Someone wore it under their samurai armor,
That was the thing.
This thing got beat the hell.
Back in the day, I think it was like a badge of honor to go to any fill-in-the-blank city, and you would come back, of course, with the Cabo San Lucas Hard Rock Cafe.
Yeah.
That was...
and like I said, it's the only one I've ever owned. It's the only one I've ever been to. I've never had much of an interest in going to any other Hard Rock Cafe. But if only we could have gone to Dick Clark's. Whatever. Dick Clark had his own chain of restaurants there for a while.
Dick Clark's American Bandstand Grill. A highly popular American-themed restaurant inspired by the iconic American Bandstand television show and hosted by Dick Clark himself. Man, nothing quite says greasy cheeseburger like being able to stare at Chubby Checker's shoes while eating said burger. One of the best themed restaurants I ever went to was in the Fairmont Hotel in San Francisco. There is a tiki bar.
I know right where it is.
The Tonga Room. Have you ever been there?
All right. So again, just for the geographically uninitiated, since most people can't point to their home state on a fucking map of the U.S., Tonga is an island nation in the South Pacific, not too far from the east coast of Australia. It's out by Fiji, down that direction. And the capital city is Nuku'alofa. And by the way, I'm not looking this up. It's right off the top of my head, and I want points for it, just like Trebek would.
That's why we love you, Jack.
The Tonga Cafe in the hotel, the big one in San Fran.
The Fairmont Hotel. And they make a hell of a Mai Tai. Now, that is probably one of the coolest places I have ever been when it comes to theme restaurants. The entire bar is around what used to be a pool for the hotel. And they have made it so creatively into a Polynesian tiki bar. And there's this like raft that is sitting in the middle of the pool. And there's typically like a musician that's playing. And there's a cover charge to get in because it's such a cool experience. And then once an hour or every 30 minutes, there's like this simulated rainstorm that happens where the water is trickling from the ceiling and there's lightning sounds. And it is probably, if you look at pictures of the Tonga Room and Hurricane Bar online, you would think it was an outdoor venue. It's really well done. But
have you ever been to a produce section where they have that, where the sprinklers kick on and it makes the thunderstorm, the rain shower noise?
Every time, it reminds me of the Tonga Room.
We have a Safeway here in town where that happens, and it's just like, what the hell? Like, honestly,
like we need to be
you
reminded.
Invest in something. Like, is that for me? Is that really to enhance the shopper experience?
Well, you see, sir, we find that people forget where their food comes from. So if we can make gentle reminders of the fact that it is coming from nature, then they're more likely to buy said produce, sir.
Yeah.
I always thought that there was somebody up watching behind, because they have all those glass things that are up above the store that they watch. I always thought there's guys watching, and they see you come in. Like, I always thought they see me come in and I'm having a really good hair day. They're just like, look at this guy, this fucker. And then you start digging through the radishes or something because you're making a salad. Spray him, spray this guy, Vinny, spray this fucker. And then they turn it on, like right when you're in there digging around.
Let's hit him with the hose. Hit him with the hose.
Bastards. I know they did it on purpose all those times.
My favorite
all right, so
is the grocery stores that actually have the fish tanks and the live lobster, because my kids, and I remember being a kid and I was thinking, oh, hey, Mom, look at those lobsters. They're so cute. Not even putting two and two together that someone was going to be eating those.
You need to make a trip to TNT. We were just talking about this, interestingly enough, the last time we spoke. It's the largest Asian grocery store in North America now. It's in Bellevue, Washington. I was just there last year. We're going back there again soon because we'll be over that direction soon.
Make sure you pick up some honey butter chips.
They have
honey butter chips.
Honey butter chips for you, and live anything you could imagine from the sea out of their like walls of tanks. They have that going on en masse there. And I always felt like, how would just a random, 12 or 14 people from Ohio feel about being thrown in a tank on top of each other tightly where they couldn't move around, knowing that, the ignominy of that wasn't enough. If they were selected by whatever monsters were lurking outside the tank, they would be chosen to be defleshed and eaten tonight.
Isn't that
monsters live a tough life if they're caught?
Isn't that what alien abductions are? I thought that's what we were all here for.
No, haven't we? Isn't that what's that movie that's circulating around, the
Disclosure Day?
Disclosure Day, isn't that got everybody back in close encounters mode now, where aliens are friendly again? And Spielberg has flipped the script yet again for us and gotten us ready for peaceful contact, as long as it's on the terms of those who are rich and powerful already staying that way. What about Chuck E. Cheese? That counts, right? As a theme restaurant?
Totally.
So I remember of all the people in the world to take me to Chuck E. Cheese, I made more trips to Chuck E. Cheese in my life with my father, whom I made no trips to anywhere significant in my entire childhood with, except for Chuck E. Cheese on some bizarre one-offs when I would go to business trips to Seattle with him. And those business trips, by the way, would exactly amount to me getting in the car, us driving over the mountains. He would get to whatever the destination he had to go to was, walk me upstairs. It was usually a 40-story office building somewhere downtown. We'd go up the elevator 20 or 30 flights. We'd get off, and he'd drop me off with the secretary. This little fellow's going to hang out with you while I could do some business here. Guy would be gone all fucking day. No lunch, no snacks, not even a cigarette for a little boy like me left behind so I could light up. And the secretaries were always just like, I'm sure he's coming back. I'm like, ma'am, I'm used to this. And she's like, would you like us to get you some? That would be nice because, I'm a growing boy. I need some food. But then after he was done, he'd just show up, like unknown if he slipped out a back door or down a side elevator or what, but he'd just pop out of the boardroom at like 5:30 after closing and be like, okay, somebody needs a slice of pizza and a big mouse to keep him company. And
a highball.
We go to the Chuck E. Cheese. I can't recommend a highball from Chuck E. Cheese enough, by the way. They make a fucking killer highball.
Who makes a killer highball? Chuck E. Cheese.
I can just see the next power lunch going, Don, what the hell are we doing here? It's like, they make the meanest highball in town. Trust me.
I was waiting for you to show up here today. I was on my
Which
phone.
was not very long, by the way. I'll have everyone know.
No, it wasn't. He was actually very punctual today. He was Jack punctual.
Okay. All right, continue.
And so I was on my phone and I was noticing how there is this circulating idea that do we really give ourselves enough time being disengaged with our minds? And there was this journal of experimental psychology. That is the first thing that should probably be a red flag. Do we really want to be a part of experimental psychology? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, the Journal of Experimental Psychology was saying that there was a study, Just Think, the challenges of the disengaged mind, which actually explored people's difficulty enjoying uninterrupted thinking, and how people were actually given the option to just sit in a room for 15 minutes and think of nothing. And a lot of people had a really hard time
doing
that.
I can see that, because I was going to say to me, it's not that you're thinking, it's what you're thinking about that probably constitutes the experience more than anything. And yes, in this day and age of people, I was just, you and I both make trips to the gym, and I was just on the treadmill yesterday, and the fella on my left, well, let's start with the fella on my right. Not unusual at all. I have balance issues on the treadmill, so I can't even imagine pulling this off physically. I'm not adroit enough to be able to do this physically, let alone it annoys me. But he's walking, and the entire time he's holding his phone, looking down on his phone, and occasionally his finger will come up and he will swipe or scroll or do whatever. Whole time. He was on there an hour, just like me. I got there right about the same time. Guy to my left, talking on his phone the whole time with it held to his ear. With it held to his ear. Now, granted, I am, in a manner of speaking, on my phone as well while on the treadmill, but it is acting, as always, a glorified Walkman, because I'm simply listening to music while I'm on the treadmill.
As you should.
I do not watch television. I am not going to, I don't know, like I said, how in the world you scroll material and do that. I couldn't even, I have to hold I don't hold the bars because they're too low. I'm tall, so I actually hold the top of the screen thing. But I have my own idea. I have to hold on to something when I'm on the treadmill.
You would get dizzy and fall on your ass.
Yeah. So I don't get that at all. But it's just, again, it's a microcosm of the world we live in, because then you look up at the Stairmaster and there's a young lady, exact same thing, on her phone as she's climbing the stairs. So anything that doesn't involve your hands, or, that you absolutely have to put the phone down in order to do at the gym, everybody's engaged with a small screen. And it's just, and then you go anywhere where there's a wait at all, restaurants, waiting area, doctor's lounge, anything like that. Everybody absolutely 100% positive, glued to their phone. So I can see where just sitting and taking in the surroundings, or having a moment to yourself to, actually formulate thought, or to, ruminate on something, even, we could put it that way, if more strong terminology.
Oh, yeah, no, that's one of the things they mentioned.
People just don't do it. They just don't do it.
They said,
and I'm afraid that they don't know how. Well, that's what I'm scared of.
And that's kind of what they said, is they said that sense of kind of being with self, as they say, is something that we've gotten accustomed to not doing. And so then when we do it, we feel almost kind of like awkward. And we're like, well, we need to do something. And so we have to be, constantly engaged in something. And they said that there's some step-by-step relaxation techniques that you can kind of adapt to kind of help maybe get you out of that rut. And they said that if you block out like 5 to 10 minutes, don't worry about the time. Close your eyes, find a quiet spot, stare into space, which people may go, well, what is he doing? Why is he doing that? They said, imagine a calm place, like a quiet beach or a warm room. And they said also engage your senses. Think about the specific sounds you're hearing, the smells, the textures of the room that you're in physically. Also release productive goals. Avoid thinking about your to-do list, solving problems, anything stressful in your life. Just completely release that and let your thoughts drift naturally until, your time is up. And I think, that could also kind of maybe even be like this kind of entry level into meditation. And I think that's why a lot of times people have a hard time with it, is because it's like a muscle. You're not really accustomed to it. And so then when you're alone with your thoughts, you maybe don't like it as much.
I think there's two different kinds of concentrated thought, thinking like we're talking about. Impromptu default, if you will, and concentrated or purposeful, willful thought. I need to sit down and think about what I'm going to do about the situation with this, that, or the other. Or I need to sit down and think about what I'm going to do with the windfall that happened because I scratched the lottery ticket for, I need to contemplate something. So I'm going to purposefully sit down and actually assign time for me to focus on trying to do that. Now, that, in my experience, I've ever seen the movie Empire of the Sun?
Oh yeah.
I probably mentioned this on the show before, but yeah, there's a young Christian Bale in that show, and he is very much a thinker and a doer, and he's busy. And there's a scene in there where a guy shakes him. He's in a dangerous situation on the roof as the Americans are bombing a runway in China that the Japanese have taken over. And he says, "Try not to think so much. Try not to think so much." And it resonates with me, of course, because it's what I want to have somebody show up and shake me to do when I'm overthinking, which is an absolute marquee quality of my personality. But that said, I feel like, again, there's that. I'm going to sit down and think about this. Okay, let's see how it goes. And then there's you find yourself thinking about something and you've been off the trail for minutes already. You've been on. It's like, wow, I've been thinking about that for a while. And that is the funner. That's the more enjoyable kind of thought to me, because it's random and it's happening organically. It's happening when it's supposed to, usually in a moment where you're in a circumstance where it doesn't demand your absolute attention, or you can't be willfully distracted by your phone or a screen of some variety. Car is a great place. Yes, you pay attention to the road, but a lot of thinking gets done in the car. And I'm a pontificator as well. So a lot of talking to oneself gets done in the car. I'll
100%.
give full soliloquies in the car, sometimes. So
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that also points to kind of an area that I wanted to touch on, which is this idea of kind of relaxation. And it's that subconscious that is allowed to just kind of be while you're doing a task like driving, that, you may not be thinking about the task you're doing, but it really is kind of like spurring you to just kind of unwind. And one of the things that I discovered recently was like, this is going to sound crazy as hell, but one of the things that I really like to do is I like to listen to music and work on spreadsheets.
Oh, spreadsheet tunage. Yeah, I hear that. I got it.
So
you have spreadsheets to work on, though, in your line of business.
And it's not necessarily even relating to my line of business. It has more to do with, I will be listening to music and I will be going through a list of music files, and I will be sorting out information from this spreadsheet and using it to better organize my music collection.
Okay.
It's completely wonky, but it is one of those things where it's almost kind of like also, do you remember when the world was first taken over by the solitaire game on PC?
Oh,
and everybody was playing solitaire on PC.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that.
Yeah, they had calculations like they do now about the March Madness tournament, how much time you're at work and things like that. I was certainly guilty of it on occasion. Here's something that I would add to what the study said as far as its recommendations for. Now, remember, this goes back to Jack Hansen not being the best meditator in the world, to say the least. Like, quieting that hamster is difficult to no end. But I will say this, I would offer this as a suggestion for people that will hear, just like you said, in passing, or these doctors are saying in passing, well, just, get all this stuff off your mind. Get the fact that your mom hates your wife and, sabotaged her yet again at the baby shower, and they're mad. Get that off your mind, and get the fact that your boy, your middle boy of the 4 that you have that you're trying to feed and keep up with, he was suspended from school for dropping a lizard in a girl's pants. And, so he's not in a good way in school, and they're thinking about kicking him out. And, there's charges pending, all these things. Everybody has shit going on in their life. We all have drama, whether we want it or not, whether we invite it or not. Drama follows the human condition around. It's just part of the deal. It's part of the game. So with that said, this is where I feel like a belief, a real attachment to a belief in a higher power, or a belief in a connection to something that is seemingly vastly larger than we are, or definitely more involved than we are. However you want to put it, really comes in handy. Because I feel like whenever I really need to stop and get quiet and focus on something, that is my trick for leaving those things behind, because it can be very difficult to dismiss your worries or troubles over this, that, or the other. But when you sit and force yourself to come to a realization that you should always be carrying in perpetuity about, I am just a piece in a larger puzzle, just as important as it is as important as me. We're inextricable. That's my mantra. But you're sitting down and basically clearing this as just being what it is for me, which is just an experiment. It's just an experience that we go through. It's not the beginning, middle, and the end of everything. It's not, you only live once. Not in my world. I mean, I'm with the camp that we are infinite things, this spark that makes us what we are. And, this really is kind of the outside looking in a way. This is inverse of the way we think about it, that this is the dream. And when we dream, we actually go back to, where it is more real per se.
It's
in a manner of speaking.
fascinating to me that theory has started to really pop up in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, well, it's becoming more prolific because I think it's becoming a requirement for people to do just what you're saying, which is to get back to a position where they're not lost in a completely artificial realm. They're grounded to something that is more
eternal.
I mean, tangible is one term for it, but really they're grounded to something that even spiritually is real. It's not the computer. You're not just constantly on a screen, or you're not constantly trying to sate this brain, because this brain loves to take in all of this junk food online. It loves it. It'll just consume it and consume it and consume it. Brain rot is what it's called, So we love that because it keeps our mind busy, but it only keeps one part of our mind active, and it does very little for the heart most of the time. And that's what also needs to be kept humming just as much more in these circumstances. So anyway, yourself and say, well, for some people, I'm a child of what I would call God, and I'm reminded that I'm just a cog in its, big plan. And that's great. That works just fine, just the same. But you've got to do something to get yourself in that chair, sitting in the middle of the universe, and then pan out and notice that you're just a speck among all of those stars. Then to me, you've pushed everything aside and said, okay, a lot of this stuff, even though I'm supposed to care about it, and in some of it I really do because it involves people that I care about and love, I've got to just let go for right now, because as far as the bigger eternal picture is concerned, it's not the biggest deal in the world. And I need to get connected to something right now because this is serious. So that's what I would offer to say, because for doctors to just say, well, get all that stuff off your mind. Well, for some people, it's very difficult for them to leave that. And I think that's a good way to do it anyway. One of the good ways you could do it.
Oh, that's a great suggestion, actually. And I also think that part of our ability to conceptualize ourself and other things that aren't necessarily right in front of us is not only one of our biggest assets as humans, but it's also something that I think trips us up a lot of the time. And if you think about it, we are given this ability to conceptualize things that aren't in the present. And that can a lot of times also be something that causes us to get into one of these vicious cycles and one of these loops of kind of counterproductive thinking and ruminating, as you used that word. That's a perfect example of what they're talking about, actually.
Well, that's what warriors do.
Yeah.
I am a warrior by trade. It's interesting. I had a naturopath years ago who did some Reiki on me. And when we first started, one of the things that he did was a physical examination.
What size was the rake that they used on you?
Oh, it was a big fucking rake. I had to get out the big chopper from the
wood
closet.
shit.
The initial phases of that process was a very cursory physical examination. And part of it was he asked me to stick out my tongue. And of course, me being the inquisitor that I am, I immediately said, why? And he said, because we need to establish the kind of position that you have. So I did. And in a few brief moments, he said, okay, just as I thought. And I said, what's that? And he said, you're a warrior. And I said, you got that from my tongue? And he said, yes, the shape of the tongue the formation of the tongue can determine in that line of, ancient Oriental, medicine, as you'd say, or quasi-medicine, whatever you chalk it up to be, it defines someone's dispositional energy. And he said, you are definitely somebody who has a penchant for worrying. There's no question about it. Inclined to, as soon as we hear a piece of information, even if it's not troublesome, we can spin it into a worst case scenario. But what I've determined is happening, this is a theory that I have about that for you worriers out there, you fellow worriers. I have a theory about that, and it's this. I think that even though it is detrimental to us, certainly, because we're instantly taking something that either has some gravity but probably isn't, I think the reason that we're doing that, the worst possible thing that could happen as a result of this first, so we can get on with the rest of it. I almost feel like, if that makes sense to you, I almost feel like you're thinking about, all right, well, what's the worst that could happen? People hear you say that. Well, what's the worst that could happen? Well, we literally picture the worst thing that could happen. We bring it into a state that's as real as it can be without being fully palpable. So we make that a picture in our minds, and then we go, okay, but that's not going to happen. But because I've already let myself go to the worst possible thing that I could imagine that would happen, everything that's possible aside from that is likely the outcome. See, I think we're trying to circumscribe the worst from happening by actually thinking of it. And I think it's misinterpreted a lot of times by psychology and by doctors and people who try to help us with these things, because they're saying that it's a flaw. I don't think we're flawed. I think we think the way that we think for a reason. I think that we have a mental disposition like we have for a reason. I'm not saying psychosis and other things aren't possibly real, but I also think there's more to them than just what a clinical definition assigns to them. So this is one of those areas where I feel like, again, it's just a theory about that's what's happening, because I've caught myself actually on the back end of that going, see, don't you feel better? And I do. And it's a strange thing, because I have to also talk to my own shrink about that when I'll say, well, yeah, I'm worrying a lot lately. Well, what are you worrying about? Well, I worried about this. And he said, well, there was nothing to worry about. You realize that? And I said, yeah, but when I worried about the worst thing, I felt better. And he said, how do you feel better about worrying? And I said, I just do, because I feel like I've gone to the worst possible place and put an X through it. It's eliminated. Because I've thought of it, it's not going to happen now. And of course, he thinks that's very counterintuitive and, all that. But anyway, just another thought.
But, I also think that that's your brain's ability to fill in the blanks, and I think that's kind of also getting back to that kind of idea of humans as having that asset of being able to think conceptually is an asset, but it's also kind of a hindrance in some situations. I think it also it allows you to kind of have a natural progression of how your brain is putting together those thoughts. And your brain putting together those thoughts is maybe different than how my brain puts together those thoughts. And I think that's where you put those two different personality characteristics, like a pessimist and an optimist, side by side, where I have a tendency to be almost too optimistic. And I don't think about the bad things that could happen that maybe do end up happening. And then it's like, oh crap, that just happened.
Yeah, I mean, I also feel like a lot of people, there might be some people that are cynical to the core, i.e. you peel back every layer and you're going to find cynicism. But I feel like most people, even if they're outward optimists and seem to be in some cases even overly optimistic, i.e. they're not grounded in some way, I still feel like if you peel back enough layers, you're going to find about 50% of the layers are optimistic and 50% are going to be glass half empty, as we would say. They're going to be, the worst case scenario, maybe thinkers. But I feel like it has to do with different structures within our experience. For example, it's easy to listen to any of the podcasts we've done and say, well, Jack is clearly misanthropic to the core. I mean, and that's not entirely true, because, as I've already said, my theory that the reptilian conspiracy is accurate totally leans on the fact that human beings are fucked up, but they're not so fucked up they could fuck up this badly. It's got to be lizards from a fourth dimensional existence. How could it not be? So I'm willing to give humanity a break, but generally speaking, yes, I tend to be more pessimistic about the human condition and the human experience than I do the spiritual aspect of being here. Any of the spiritual aspects, any of the thought about, okay, there's more to this, there's more going on, this is where you're going to find my optimism, channeled to the maximum. This is where you're going to find that side of me, just glintering
like you're in tune
on the skyline. But if we're talking about, Aunt Barb's ability to, finally quit smoking, she ain't gonna fucking quit smoking. It's like, oh, Jack, you're so pessimistic. Yes, she will. I'm like, she's tried 95 times, patches, gums. Just let her smoke already and die with one lung.
Yeah.
I mean, that's again. So that's me about humanity and some of the people in it. Not that I don't wish Aunt Barb the best, but then there's other aspects of me where you're going to find a chokingly eternal optimist, just nauseatingly optimistic about, whereas you're going to, if you put me up to this is where if you stack me up next to a nihilist and we talked about philosophy, this is going to be, people, I'm going to look like Mary Poppins. I mean, I'm going to look like I never have taken a shit in my life, and if I did, it was perfumed to the max and was glowing pink and there were birds circling it, and so anyway, it's just I feel like we're all wired the way that we're supposed to be wired, and then we have experiences that can rewire us in some cases or can impact how those wirings fire. But I don't, and I never have subscribed to psychology's theory that seems to be, in their opinion, there's really kind of only one way to wire the car. And if you're not wired that way, you're broken. I don't like that.
It's funny that you say that, because I don't know any other human that could say Mary Poppins taking a shit and and quite make it roll off the tongue like you do.
I don't know that Mary Poppins, I don't know that I said that, but I like that. If Mary Poppins, what do you suppose, when Mary poppened her shits, what do you think they were like? They probably came out as little snack cakes, little chocolate snack cakes with little eyes on them and little ears and, oh, look, save them for the children.
She also had pieces of corn in her feces.
Ventilation shaft.
This ventilation shaft
Right.
brought to you by the Friends of Corn.
I just stumbled across this earlier today. Honestly, I only skimmed it. It's only 3 lines, but as soon as I read the first line, I'm like, this is going on the show. I'm kind of short for a vent shaft, and we all know that I've got to have some kind of airing out here. So here you go. All right. I guess we'll wait to do the venting later. I'll just read this to you as it's written here. So apologies if it's not written well, because you know how a lot of these things are written these days. A Georgia family, so a family from Georgia, upset after a car dealership sold a vehicle to their relative who was blind or is blind and mentally disabled. All right. So I just want you to soak that in before we get to the particulars. The dealership sold a blind and mentally disabled man
Georgian
a car.
Man. Georgian man. Do you think do you think they call themselves Georgians?
Georgians is the correct term.
Georgians.
Yes.
Okay. A Georgian man.
Thomas Johnson, 74-year-old Thomas Johnson, took a bus to Heritage Volkswagen with $15,000 that he'd saved working small, hoping to once again own a car like he had years ago before, again, he went blind and mentally disabled. A salesman sold him a Mini Cooper for just over $14,000 and drove Johnson home since, of course, he couldn't see to drive it home himself. We already know that car salesmen in particular, have a lengthy history of being crap weasels, pieces of shit, who will do absolutely positively fucking anything to make a sale because they're just that gutter slime low. Are you insane? Not even maybe is there somebody in charge of you? Well, I don't have a boating license, but I love to buy a boat. And you know what they're going to say? They're going to say, well, he's an adult. And he walked in with cash because remember, $15,000 from working odd jobs for over a year's time. They want the cash in that envelope because that's exactly what they're trained to go for. That guy is packing money and we're getting it. And they did. And of course, there's no refunds or exchanges more than likely, unless this family is going to get a really good attorney. Heritage Volkswagen, somewhere in Georgia, didn't say what the city was, but pick Heritage Volkswagen out of the phone book or Google somewhere in Georgia, and you got your ass wipes of the century. And that's saying a lot because in the car salesman realm, there's a lot of them. So just wanted to share that because I thought how despicably low of these people to sell a mentally handicapped blind person a car when it was clear the guy's not ever going to be able to operate it. He's blind. We can save the fact that he's mentally handicapped. He's blind.
You know, this also
Lord.
reminds me of this man in North Carolina who was a lottery winner who North Carolina actually does border Georgia, doesn't it?
No.
No, it doesn't.
South Carolina borders
South
Georgia.
Carolina. I knew it was one of the Carolinas.
Carolina,
Anyway,
you know, tomato.
it
Carolina,
reminds me
Carolina.
of this lottery winner who made international headlines when he purchased an aircraft with his prize money and then promptly crashed it into his own front yard. I mean, that's kind of along the same lines, isn't it?
Yeah, but he wasn't blind or mentally handicapped.
Well,
Was he?
I think you could probably question whether or not he was
Well,
mentally handicapped.
I know there's an asterisk that goes next to every mentally handicapped, because every fucking person in the world, in the United States at least, is mentally handicapped to some degree these days, if you ask me. But I could rail on them all day. So, but I also have an honorable mention.
Yes.
So we'll put the folks at Heritage Volkswagen on pause if we're not altogether done with them. But again, you know, when you're looking to buy your next car for a blind person in your family who can't even fucking drive it, think Heritage Volkswagen in Georgia. Fine folks down there. They'll steal your money. At Heritage Volkswagen, they'll rob you blind. That should be their fucking tagline. Honorable mention this week for something, and it's not anything, of course, at all, so hear me out. It's not anything that has to do with the animal itself, but I am absolutely fucking despicably sick and tired of not only hearing about, but also no one getting, again, the underrooting, you know, what I would feel like the issue is here with fucking Jimothy, the deformed raccoon. I'm sure you know about this bit of... No? Oh, Christ. So, in short... Seattle, Washington, public park. Someone spots a raccoon that's born with a spinal deformity several months ago and begins feeding it along with other raccoons, which was, we all know, could like have you dead in a pile of raccoons. They're very voracious eaters if they know that the food's coming from you. Anyway, starts taking pictures of it. And, you know, and as usual, Jimothy, as they call him, they named him Jimothy. Jimothy becomes an overnight internet sensation. People love him because it's like a raccoon picture a raccoon getting into a clown car in a cartoon and then getting smashed a la the Roadrunner up against a, you know, rock face cliff and then emerging in that accordion shape. Okay? It's literally like a third of a raccoon. You think it's a trick of the camera when you first see his profile because there's the face and the head of a raccoon, which looks normal. And then he turns to his side and there's like, it's Fizzgig from Dark Crystal.
Amazing that he even survived as long as he did, right?
And we should already be loving all raccoons anyway, because they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. So again, I wish all the best to Jimothy. I'm worried somebody's going to kill Jimothy because people are that crazy and somebody's going to divulge the location of this little guy. And two congressmen have come forward now and are begging the mayor of Seattle to move Jimothy to safe quarters, to safe harbors, because they're worried that he's going to be abducted or killed by somebody. And I agree. So, but I still just think like, you know, Jimothy is not the best ambassador for the raccoon world, and human beings should be ashamed of themselves. It's just like, it's a deformed raccoon. Why do you not care about perfectly healthy raccoons? It's with poor Jimothy. I feel bad for Jimothy because Jimothy, you know, has got to be looking around by now going, I don't look like the other raccoons, man. Something's going on. I was kind of figuring by now I'd run into another raccoon that kind of maybe looked like he'd been squashed by an Acme garbage can in the Roadrunner cartoons like me, but I'm not really seeing another one, so I got to be a one-off, and this is making me a little nervous, feeling a little out in the open here, feeling a little on an island here, if you know what I mean. And now he's taken the internet by storm. The worst thing that could happen to a human being in their lifetime, if you ask me. Oh, he's become an internet sensation overnight.
I'm going to start a petition that more songs need to be titled after Midwestern states.
Yeah, this is one of those. There's a few songs that actually have Ohio in the title.
Yeah.
There's a famous song, but For Dead in Ohio, but that's not the name of the song, is it?
I think it's just Ohio by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, right?
Okay, this is a different Ohio. This is by the band Bandage from the late 1970s.
Yeah, but that's the one you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
What's the name of this artist?
Bandit. I believe they were Australian, actually.
Well, hopefully this one survives the algorithms. We haven't had the best luck lately.
Really?
Yeah. I think your music is starting to become more mainstream, probably because of this podcast and its highlighting of non-mainstream artists.
Wow. All right. We don't want to turn the non-mainstream mainstream. That's the least. Yeah, but we don't want to do that. It's the last thing we want to do.
All right, Jack. Right. Until we meet again.
Jimothy Cricket.
Well, it looks like Jack and Michael have finished up their latest chat about all things existence. But if anything they said got your own Existence Brewing, be sure and catch their other talks at existencebrewing.com and drop them an email to share your thoughts using contact@existencebrewing.com.
Existence Brewing.